Hi, it's Leanne and I am here today with a review of my 5th Booker Prize longlisted book this year. That is Everything Under by Daisy Johnson. Now, I don't want to say too much about the story of this book because it does centre around a myth retelling. If you've watched any reviews of this or read any reviews, you may well know what myth it is. If you do want to know, it would be very easy to find on Google. But I feel if you do want to read this book, it is better to go in not knowing. So the story is told by a woman called Gretel, who is now 32. She was abandoned by her mother when she was 16, and she's trying to find her. She does find her in the end, but it turns out that her mother now has Alzheimer's, and Gretel has to learn how to deal with living with this woman that she hasn't known for 16 years and who is in some ways barely recognisable to her, and also trying to find out what happened one particular winter when she was 13 and a boy called Marcus lived with her and her mother on their canal boat for a time. That is all I'm going to say. There is a lot in this book about family, about the nature of fate, about memory, and that's just the beginning. There is so much going on in this book, but I really do feel like it's better going in as blind as possible. What I will say is that the story didn't work for me as well as I wish it had done. Now, I loved the writing in this book. The prose is amazing. There is such amazing, beautiful imagery throughout. It's quite simple language, but it's lovely. It's quite haunting in some places. I think the book is worth reading just for the quality of the writing. The story, however, as I was reading it, I was thinking, now I figured out quite early what myth this book was trying to retell. And I had a vague idea of the myth, but I don't know it really well. So I was thinking as I was reading it, something isn't quite fitting together here. And I wasn't sure what it was. And I was putting this down to my lack of knowledge about the story that Everything Under is retelling. However, I then, after I'd finished it, I was watching Britta's review over at The Second Shelf, which I will link below, and she put it into words exactly what I was feeling, which was that I was blaming it on my lack of knowledge, but just because this is a retelling doesn't mean that it shouldn't make sense within its own story. I mean, I assume the myth itself makes sense. It's something I'm definitely going to go and try and find a version of it that I can read. But the motivations of the characters in this retelling of it didn't ring true to us. I never quite understood why people were saying what they were saying or doing what they were doing. And it was frustrating because I felt like this book had so much potential to really hit the spot, and because of this disruption between the story it was trying to tell and the story it failed to tell, it meant that it ended up quite frustrating. But I still feel like this is very much worth a read. It reminded us in some ways of The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock, which is another Daisy Johnson who wrote this. This is her debut novel. And again, The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock was another very hyped debut novel, which was written beautifully, but never quite came together the way that you wanted it to. This is similar. I mean, I would say it is better. It is very ambitious, and the ambition means it's too ambitious. It doesn't quite all come together as it should. But I don't want to blame the author for being ambitious. I feel like as she moves on, she will hopefully manage to kind of calm that down and manage her writing so that she is able to create a fulfilling story, even with all of the myth, fairy tale, you know, just all of the different influences she clearly has that she desperately wants to get into her writing. It was still a really beautiful book. I feel like I would probably want to reread it because I'm sure there are so many things that went over my head, or just I didn't end up taking it amongst everything else that was happening. So even with reservations, I really hope this is a shortlisted book. I feel like there is so much there that is worthy of being read by lots of people. And like I say, even if nothing else, it is written so beautifully that it even manages to overcome any story problems, because you're just kind of so lost in the writing as you're reading it. So yeah, this is, along with Milkman, this is the second book that I really hope will make the shortlist. And yeah, I recommend it. I think that people should read it. Lots of people have really loved this book. Like I say, I had reservations, but it came close to being a really, really amazing read. So that's that. Number 6 will be Sabrina, which is the graphic novel that has created much debate about being on the Man Booker list. And I have to say I will be adding to that debate. So I will see you soon with that video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.